In the digital age, data plays a huge role in our everyday lives. It's present in lots of obvious ways, when we're shopping online, for example, and have to type in our name and address. But data collection can also be less visible. Take data brokers, for example. You've probably never heard of them, but these businesses specialize in creating in-depth profiles of individuals for advertisers. A single profile might draw on up to 1,500 data points. This can include a person's sexuality, browsing history, political affiliation, and even medical records. One US-based data broker, Axiom, claims to have files on 10% of the world's population. It's not just businesses, of course. In 2013, Edward Snowden uncovered a vast regime of mass government surveillance programs, opening a global conversation which is still unfolding today.
Disturbing find. Hackers are selling stolen data on YouTube. A new Intel security report shows the cybercriminals are advertising stolen financial information on standard websites to reach everyday buyers. The heavily encrypted dark web used to be the only place to sell data, but now hackers are opening new doors. By using Google-owned YouTube, sellers can be recommended and see comments left by buyers, helping make purchases more shopper-friendly. The bottom line, it's becoming dangerously easy for someone to get into your bank account or steal your identity.
I'd like to go on an exploration with you today on 3 questions. 3 questions which will undoubtedly change you the moment you leave this auditorium. 3 questions which will nurture an idea possibly so large it would disrupt industries that we currently hold as unassailable. 3 questions. Are you being robbed? Are you missing out? He is. Are you being paid? So I saw this photo and I thought about, how we all transit through our lives. We seem to go in all these different directions, leaving behind these vapor trails as we go through our lives. And, we do. It's quite identifiable where we're going. And to give you a little bit of context, let's have a look at Google. Any of you have a Google account or an Android phone, or even those of you with Apple or an Apple account, you can find this information. So let's look at Google. Just type in location tracking or timeline, and you can actually see all the places you've been. So here's me. But more importantly, let's go pick a date. Here's September 12th of this year. I was in New York. I left the hotel at the New York Palace, went over to the Eugene O'Neill Theater, all date and time stamped. I came back to the Palace. I went to J. Crew, bought some socks, very important. Went back to the Palace, hung out there for an hour, checked emails, went over to Rockefeller Center. You can probably guess what I saw at the Rockefeller Center. Those are my photos, by the way. Google courteously appended them to the timeline for me. Every single step of mine tracked. And every one of you that have any device, either Apple or Android, have exactly that amount of tracking in your lives if you choose to look at it. And so I want to think, as we look at this for yourselves, that you're like this automobile driving around the streets, and behind you, you're leaving an exhaust behind you. And that exhaust is your personal data exhaust. And if you look really closely at that exhaust, it's not carbon monoxide and particulates, it's actually ones and zeros. And in fact, hidden in those ones and zeros are dollar signs, because that is worth a tremendous amount of money. And so here's Facebook, our friend. Location history, obviously conveniently turned on automatically for you. Bottom left, tracking of everywhere someone's been, and I'm going to tell you a story about a friend of mine in Palo Alto in California who went shopping. Well, shopping is actually a bit of an extension. Went with his wife browsing homes, just privately having a look, took some photos, and posted them on Instagram. And now you can guess why Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion. Posted them on Instagram, and what happened the very next day? This. Cross-referenced against Zillow, which is a real estate homes compendium that actually matched the photographs and his location against the houses he and she were looking at, and gave them not only a realtor named Kathy Thierkel with 33 stars, by the way, she's really good, and pricing, but actually cross-referenced credit history, income statements, and location to give him offers on that house, all without his consent or knowledge. There's a lot of money in that data. Fitbit. Many of you might have one or know what they are. Health trackers, they're now being used in a courtroom. Let me tell you another story. This gentleman, unfortunately, traveled a lot, And he believed, unfortunately, that his wife was being unfaithful to him. So when he came back after a trip, he actually accessed their joint cell phone records, which he has legal right to, and found out that indeed she had been going to the wrong side of the tracks at 2 a.m. in the morning on times he was overseas. But not just that, he could access her Fitbit record, which was actually attached to her application on her cell phone. To find out that her heart rate had been spiking to 157 beats per second for 27 minutes at the same time. Now, half of you are in awe going, wow, that's really creepy, and half of you going, wow, 27 minutes. So, calm yourselves, calm your heart rate. Now for the big reveal. This is important. Your personal data is an asset. Like a bond, like a stock, like your home, it's an asset, and it belongs to you. You have rights, title, and interest in your data. It is yours, and the world seems to have forgotten this. So, part of it hasn't. Google, market value per user. They've quantified you not as a person, but as a unit metric of how much you're worth. $200 at Google, $116 at Facebook. The price of free, PC World, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, they're selling you to advertisers. So the old saying, if you're not paying for it, you're not a customer, you are what? The product. In this fact, actually, I don't think you're the product, but your personal data is actually that product. And at the bottom, we're living in an era where big companies not only exploit what we've given them for free, but it could be used for good or to create entire business empires. So there's a tremendous amount of value in that data, and it's being used without your consent, often without your knowledge, and someone else is making money off of your stuff. And if you have any other just reference points to want proof to yourself, have a look at any website you go to where there's an ad. And that ad is often generated after it's been tracking your history, what you've been doing, what you've been going, what you've been consuming or looking at to consume, and then people are paying, in this case Ford, Nikon, Hilton, to offer you ads for something they think you might want. There's a huge amount of lucrative business in that personal data. So, are you being robbed? I would certainly contend for many of us, yes, we are. So, I found this picture and I just loved it. It's a classic standoff. You've got these three people, all with their guns loaded, pointing at each other, no one knowing what the next step is. And I like this guy. I thought he was software. He's got a big soft coat on. He's kind of a software-looking guy, and he is actually software and big data. And what they're doing is trying to get as much of your data as quickly as they can to do stuff with it. And they've had all kinds of issues. Uber had God mode. I mean, really? Facebook, privacy tweaks. Facebook has been a constant, unfortunate abuser of privacy, and they've run experiments on people. And Spotify at the bottom, a huge privacy backlash. What is actually your data worth? So then you've got this guy. He's kind of hardware-oriented, hardware, Internet of Things. So we're talking those Fitbits, those Nest thermostats, self-drive cars. We're talking devices and everything. And to just give you two examples, here's William Meredith, who pulled out a shotgun and shot down a drone over his backyard. It certainly wasn't his, and his daughter was outside suntanning. And then Samsung TV, any of you who have one, just check when you get home, please. Many of them were shipped with their webcams enabled, and
top-level government officials have been in talks with the internet industry over a proposal to log and store the web
and
activities
actually anyone
of
can hack
every
into it effectively and turn on the camera and the microphone without your notice, and actually record you while you're in your room. Now, Samsung's idea was it would sit there waiting for you to go TV on. So think about that, and think about how they then had to ship firmware to update those TVs. And so then you've got the regulator that goes, whoa, we need to somehow stop these two parties. We're in a standoff. What are we going to do? And the regulators enact a whole bunch of laws. Consumer Bill of Rights in the US, Canada's opt-in legislation. You have to choose now if you want to opt in. Lots of stuff in Europe, the European General Data Protection Regulation covering all personal data. Even here locally, the new PIPA law on privacy. So lots of regulatory action, and software and big data go, okay, you got me, now I'm going to do this. And what do? iTunes agreement. Great example. Now, many of you probably have an iTunes account and might use an iTunes agreement, but if you actually dig into it a little bit further, have all of you realized it's 20,745 words over 36 pages? So honestly, raise your hand in the audience if any of you can actually say you've read that before you consented to it. In fact, 7 attorneys spent 7 days, as published in a Forbes article. Those 7 attorneys still could not understand what privacy rights were given up. And so that is responded to by that industry by giving you all kinds of settings on your devices. iPhone's here. But your iPhone has a microphone, a camera, an accelerometer. It has all these different applications, and you are given opportunities to try and customize them, but many of us just want to play Angry Birds, so we just download them. And so if you run an analysis on your device, you can very quickly find out, and this is actually on mine, 50 applications accessing my contacts, 57 accessing my information 24/7, whether or not the app was actually being actively used. And 61 accessing my media and files. And you ask me why Uber needs a copy of a photo I took of my children on the beach. They don't. So we give this stuff away. And so I think about it, and I actually think we're none of those three. We're actually the camera person. We're taking that photograph. We are watching this happen to us. And then when I think about us watching this, I actually think about this, and this is just heartbreaking. As a father of two young boys, 6 and 10, one of whom is in the audience, I think about the amount of time we're spending with our youth in front of devices. And, you know, good parenting and other decisions are part of that, but a very big part of it is the fact that they are actually building their own digital legacies, their own vapor trails, exhausts, as they're going through life at a very young age. And in fact, if you aren't sure about that, you should know what Facebook's shadow profiles are about. Every single person in this room has a Facebook profile, whether you use the application or not. Some of you, and a friend I know here, actually stopped using Facebook, but he still has a profile. And I saw a lady walking around earlier that was very pregnant, and I can tell you when she took the ultrasound probably and shared that on a social media site, that baby, unborn yet, has a profile. So that is the world we're living in, and we need to take ownership of our role in that. We can't just watch it. And so when I ask, are we missing out, I absolutely believe, yes, indeed, we are. So the good news is, there's a solution. So every good story has to have some kind of a villain and some kind of a win at the end. So let's look about the win here. The solution involves the reality that
the browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bytes can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments, so it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source, because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question: do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.